Hey everybody, this video is going to be very powerful for you if you either have consistent communication frustrations in a relationship that you are in. Number two, if you've had a difficult time making relationships work long term, this will be very valuable for you. Or three, if you feel like a relationship that you have is going on the rocks and going in the wrong direction, this will be very valuable for you. We share in this video the 4 main communication skills that are proven, data proven and driven to provide a 94% success rate with relationships if you're able to master them. These are go-to things that I teach my clients, and they work exceptionally well. So I think you'll find this valuable, very useful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you there.
All right, friends, this video is going to be critical for you. Absolutely critical. Probably going to be one of the top 10 most important ones in the entire program, because this concept is one you've really got to take in. So get yourself in a high energy state, be prepared for this, get excited, be ready to take some notes. And I want you to be filtering this in terms of how this applies to your life concretely, okay? So you're here to either improve an existing relationship or make sure that you don't repeat relationship mistakes of the past, right? One of those two. And what I want to do is clarify for you what actually causes relationships to fail. The video on the 5 relationship stressors kind of helps you understand the cycle of how they fail. But I want to give you a really, really, really simple way to understand how they fail. Most people think that relationships fail because of the other person. That's the dominant thing that they believe, right? It was that person's fault. They weren't doing something. They weren't saying something. They were too consumed by themselves, whatever. At most, even the most like fair people amongst us will say, well, you know, we both just were not really fair to each other. We weren't the right people for each other. That's really kind of the dominant social norm, is to say we weren't the right people for each other. And I want you to get clear that that's not the case. What actually predicts whether a relationship is going to succeed or fail is not contingent on were you with the one. That myth of the one is BS. There's plenty of people you could be aligned with, who have values that could align with you, who you could have tremendous relationships with. It's whether you're bringing the right skills and understandings to the table. And what I'm going to walk you through is the absolutely most core essence of how you can ensure your relationship succeeds long term. So long as there's somebody that you feel attraction to, and you continuously purposefully fan that flame, then all you really have to do is what I'm going to show you in this video. So there was a researcher, brilliant man, his name is John Gottman, and he works with his wife as well. And he researched for decades, and he found a model to predict with 94% accuracy whether a couple would end up separating or being divorced or not. So he did longitudinal studies. So he interacted with a couple at one stage in their relationship and researched, and then he followed up with them years later, and he was able to derive a model where he could understand with 94% accuracy if they would divorce, to the point that he could now witness a couple, and he could witness them for 10 minutes of interaction. And he could then predict with 94% accuracy whether they were going to be together or not 5 to 6 years later. Okay. And it is because of the forces I'm going to be showing you in this video. Now, how in the world could he predict that? How could you actually know with 94% accuracy if your relationship is going to make it or not? Well, here's the essence of it. It has to do with the relationship of positive interactions to negative interactions. So what they did, John Gottman did, he had this research, I don't know if it's still there today, but he called it the Love Lab. So essentially what they would do is they had kind of like an Airbnb style lab where it looked like an apartment building or an Airbnb. They would have couples come for the weekend. They would hook them up to sensors that would monitor their perspiration, heart rate, that type of thing. And then they would record and view how the couples would interact. And that was it. They wouldn't interact with them. They would just let the couple interact. So it was meant to create a environment where they could see exactly how people would communicate with each other. So they could talk about anything from responsibilities with paying the mortgage to, cleaning the dog, or, whatever the case was, right? And so then what they would do is they would take every interaction with the couple had, and they created a ratio. They started to look at how many positive interactions does does the couple have with each other versus negative interactions. And what they found was that couples that succeeded, that stayed together long term indefinitely, had a 5-to-1 positive to negative interaction during fights. And I'll explain that here in a minute. They had a failing couples had a 0.8-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. And then successful couples that were really happy, well adjusted, and everything several years later had approximately, actually, it was more like an 18 to 20 to 1 ratio. So that means 18 to 20 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction. Okay. Now, let me qualify what interaction means, because you might think interaction means like conversation. Was that a positive conversation or a negative conversation? That's not what it means. And in fact, the idea of a 5-to-1 positive to negative ratio during fights may not make sense to you. So here's what positive is. Positive is, if you want to write this down, you're turning towards your partner and you're doing so in a way that attributes positive intent. That's how I would language it. That's not how Gottman languages it. But that's how I have found is the easiest way to articulate it. So for instance, let's say you're having a fight. A negative interaction would be engaging in one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, one of the 4 types of communication that will completely debilitate your relationship. And that's what I'm going to unpack for you in a minute. But a positive interaction would be, let me just give you some examples that are non-fights. Positive interaction could be a kiss on the cheek. It could be a, hey, honey, how are you today? It could be, sweetie, would you like me to get you a cup of coffee? It could be a little tap on the back. It could be a hug. It could be a smile, right? It could even be, okay, sweetie, I can see you're busy. I'll talk to you later. Love you so much, right? It could even be, even, let's now talk about some examples of being in an argument. Let's say you're in an argument and a partner goes, okay, help me understand what you're feeling. All right. If you did something like that, or if you said, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That's not how I meant to make you feel. Right. That would be a positive interaction. Another example might be, okay, didn't realize I pissed you off. What was it that happened just now? What are you feeling? Help me understand. So anything where you're turning towards the person and you're attributing positive intent, even if you're feeling angry, that's what kind of qualifies a positive to a negative. So let's talk about the negative ones. Well, actually, before we do that, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. But here's what I really want you to get, okay? Look at this screen right now. Really take this in. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know if you're about to start a relationship. I don't know if you're in one right now. And I don't know if you're trying to save a relationship that you think is on the brinks. But either way, you want to make sure that you have a long-lasting, fulfilling relationship. This is the screen you need to know. Okay. There's lots of other things that you need to know too, but like if you were going to have any one takeaway from this course, it is the relationship of positive interactions to negative interactions and making sure you know these numbers and that you are measuring, wait, where are we right now? And in fact, I want you to pause the video right now. And I want you, let's say you're in a relationship now. I want you to score, think about your last argument. And try to unpack your last argument and think of how many negative to positive interactions were there. And if you're not sure yet how to totally categorize a negative versus positive, then wait till I finish the rest of the video because you'll see the 4 categories of them. But I want you coming out of this video, put a star next to this on your paper. You got to figure out what are your current ratios, roughly. You're not going to get it exact, of course. But if you know that you're at a 5-to-5, like if you're at a 1-to-1 ratio of negative to positive, then you know you got a lot of work to do and it needs to happen right now. Okay. So I just want you to kind of get acquainted to that. So let's talk about what the negative interactions are versus the positive ones. Okay. These are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This comes again from John Gottman and his wife, and I'm spacing on her name, but criticism is the first one. This is what will wreck a relationship. If you're a couple and I've done couples coaching with you, then I might have done this where I come into your home or you come to my office and I will let you two interact for a 10-minute period of time uninterrupted so that I can see how many of these four horsemen you are actually embodying and what the ratio from positive to negative interactions is. Because then I can predict with 94% accuracy whether you guys are going to succeed or not. And I can show you how to start to improve your communication. So criticism is the first one. Here's what criticism actually means, because this is a common word, but we got to define this clearly. A criticism is an attack on a person's character, not an isolated event. Simple example is you come home, they left their laundry on the floor. You don't want them to have their laundry on the floor. So instead of saying, honey, would you mind picking up your laundry? I'd really appreciate it. You say, will you ever learn how to pick up your laundry? Right? That's criticism. Criticism is I'm making now a comment about that person's character as opposed to the event. You are no longer attributing positive intent and assuming that maybe they just forgot or they had a rough day or who knows, right? But now you are attributing a negative intent. Like there is a character piece to them that you are attributing that is bad. Okay. And this is just false. It's just manipulation of the mind. You're distorting one small isolated event and magnifying it to define something about the entire person. And that's garbage. Even if it is a pattern, okay? Even if it's something they've done 10 or 12 times, or they seem to do it almost every week, it is wrong to say to somebody, you are lazy, right? You are cynical, you are negative, you are whatever. No human being is one particular thing at all times. So you never want to be making a assumption about somebody's character. It's just not useful. It's not helpful. Instead, you want to isolate it to the event, right? And then that's something that you can actually work with. So if you want to write this down, I want you to write this down. Focus on what, not who. What, not who. So you say, honey, what happened last week was, you were late to pick up, Susie from band practice. And I don't know exactly what was going on that day, but, we can't pick her up late. So is there a way that we can adjust that in order to make sure that doesn't happen again? As opposed to saying you are always late or it was your fault, right? You're instead just saying, hey, on Tuesday, I'm not sure what happened, but obviously, you were late picking her up. I'm not sure what could have occurred, but we need to fix that. All right. That was the thing that happened that we need to make sure gets addressed. Okay. So that's criticism. Always be careful about universals here. You never, you always, you've never, right? These are the really disastrous words that will wreck your relationship. Okay. Do you like it when you screw something up one time and then somebody makes a claim about you that seems to be universal? You probably think that's the most reductionist, unfair thing in the world. So why in the world would you do it to somebody else? Now, if your partner is engaging in these patterns, by the way, that's probably what's going through the mind of some of you is like, oh, okay, sure, I do this and I'm taking notes on this and I'm going to improve this. But what about my partner? Because they do this shit too. Okay, well, remember what I said. You bring something new to the table, it causes them to bring something new to the table. It may not happen immediately as soon as you do it, but literally you just taking ownership of not bringing the four horsemen into your relationship will cause a higher level of communication to take place. And they will start to model you whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not. They will start to recognize like, oh, this person never makes comments like this. And they'll start to model it. You won't even have to teach them this. You won't have to talk to them about it. It's better for you to just master it and bring it to the table, okay? So if you want to be a real relationship master, you got to start instead by focusing on, start with your feelings, not attributing blame to your partner, right? This is how I felt. The other day, I felt like this when I saw your clothes on, the bathroom floor after I had just mopped it. right? That's how you would start that. That's not a criticism. You're talking about, this is what I felt in relation to the event. Is there a way we can work on that in the future? Okay. Then you make a request with concrete details from a loving state, and you frame the request as a polite question. Would you please pay the bills tonight? You know, honey, we were late on our electric bill last month, even though we had the money. I totally trust you to take care of this. Would you please be willing to make sure that that happens within the next day or so? Okay, this is an example of, again, a positive interaction versus criticism. You see how that works? So a positive interaction can even be about addressing something that you would view as a problem. You could say, well, honey, last year we had this issue when we planned for our vacation, we over budgeted. And I don't think that that was your fault. I think we just kind of made some joint mistakes, honestly. So can we do something new to make sure that doesn't happen again? That's a totally positive interaction. Okay. Conflict startup is key to indicating success or demise of the argument and the marriage as a whole. So criticism is very often the way into some of the other horsemen. That's what I want you to get to. Think about it. You're talking about the laundry on the bathroom floor. It wouldn't even be an argument if you just said, honey, you know, your laundry was on the bathroom floor. I love you so much. Would you mind taking care of that? What is there to argue about, really? Even if they get upset, they may go, oh yeah, all right, I'll get it later. Okay, just please give me a little time. But if you do it with a softened startup, you want to write that down, softened startup is a key skill, then you're not really going to have much of an argument, right? It'll dissipate really quickly, may not even be an argument at all, okay? So that's what we mean by conflict startup. Okay, cool. So that's criticism. Okay, so here's a little framework you can use. Okay, and you can, I'm gonna put a star around this so you actually take action with this at the end of the video, or you can pause the video now, might be wise to do it fresh. Are there things you're feeling resistance to? Right, remember the 4 R's? And do you need to make a loving request? And so here's what you would do. You could say, hey, honey, about the laundry in the bathroom, I just feel like I just cleaned that up. And I feel like we talked about this, and I just feel a little bit undervalued when I had just cleaned up the bathroom and now there's things there. Would you please potentially take care of that? It would mean a lot to me. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to use that framework and map out some things that you might need to use that on, that you have previously been criticizing somebody about. Okay, so use that to your advantage. Okay, now if criticism then continues, then contempt occurs. Contempt is like criticism gone nuclear, is the way to think about it. You're now insulting somebody, you're putting them down, you're embracing superiority, right? So you're saying, you never this, you always this, you know, what a this you are, right? I could use a lot of expletives or, you know, colorful language here. Okay, I'm sure you've done this every once in a while, but this is like where it gets really, really bad. Contempt is where you are now feeling a sense of disgust for somebody. That's really kind of what it is, okay? So your words are now soaked with disgust. It could also come in the form of something that's not verbal. So it could be, these are the common ones. Eye rolling is a common one. Scoffing is another one, right? So when I'm working with a couple and somebody says something that usually comes in the form of a criticism, their partner will then go, huh, yeah, okay, great. And they'll do something like that. That's contempt. Okay, so it comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but you got to figure out what yours. The key element here is disgust. That's really what it is. Okay, it's really the most corrosive of the 4 horsemen. It really wears down the ability for your partner to even listen to you or hear you because they feel totally hurt and attacked, understandably. Right? It's very, very corrosive. It is going to create a giant wall between you and your partner. It's a big problem. So you need to take a stock of where are you engaging in contempt. Now, what's going to be tempting again is for you to go, oh gosh, I know exactly what my partner does like this. Okay, great. Freaking put that on the shelf and stop. You need to take ownership for you. That's the whole theme of this program. Okay, you bring something new to the table. They will bring something new to the table eventually. Don't get in a superiority mindset where you're going to try to put somebody else down and help them understand how they're engaging in contempt. You worry about you, and the rest will follow, I promise. Okay. Yep, talked about that. Name calling, sarcasm, mockery, eye rolling, pulls on the left corner of your mouth, right? Something like turning away from somebody, or, this is where the common ones are like, oh, yep, well, there's your mother talking again, right? Those types of things, right? Contempt is just really nasty, nasty stuff. Facial expressions are just as destructive as words, okay? So that's what contempt is. Defensiveness is the third one. This is like deflection. So this is where your partner is trying to communicate something that they feel, and you deflect it right back to them. Now, remember how I said you got to take ownership for you? Chances are, if you're in this program and you're in a relationship right now, both you and your partner are engaged in the four horsemen to some extent. If you're in this program because you had failed relationships in the past, you've engaged in these in the past, more than likely. So what I want you to get is, let's say your partner comes at you with criticism, like you left your clothes on the bathroom floor. They say, are you ever going to pick this up? Are you ever going to like actually pick up after yourself? That's criticism. If you then go, well, what about when you left your shit in the sink? That's defensiveness. So what I want you to get is, even if your partner's coming at you with the four horsemen, it's not appropriate or justified to engage in the four horsemen back. Okay. You instead want to use the skills I'm teaching you, not engage in them, and communicate in a way that creates a higher outcome. Okay. So this is deflection of responsibility. So when I see a relationship that is destined for divorce, their communication style looks very much like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Well, what about you? Yeah, you're asking me why I don't do that. You never do that. And then it's, oh, great, here we go again. And it's a lot of that over and over and over again. Okay. So there's two types of defensiveness. The first one is kind of like innocent victimhood, like, well, I didn't mean to do that. That's not what I meant, where you're deflecting responsibility. Okay. That would be the first one. The other one is righteously indignant counterattacks. Well, what about when you did that? Okay, one of those two. Either one of those is not helping, and it is destroying the relationship. Okay, you got to be able to assess, what is it that you need to take ownership for. You want to take responsibility for how you made your partner feel, even if you disagree with how they feel. And you got to move forward from that state towards a higher outcome and create a new constructive way to make some decisions. Okay. Take some responsibility for the problem at hand, even if you believe it was not necessarily your fault. Here's the key thing I want you to get, and you need to write this down. In a relationship, you can either be committed to being right, or you can be committed to being in love. It really is one of those two. The relationships that are destined for disaster are the ones where one or both partners has gotten into their head that they feel disrespected by their partner, and they're the one in the right and their partner is the one in the wrong, and they've got to feel justified. Seeking to feel justified, seeking to get respect, and seeking to prove that you are right will absolutely wreck your relationship. Absolutely. You got to drop that shit. The people who are worried about getting respect are the most angry people in the world. Drop the need to feel respected all the time, and instead demonstrate respect and love to somebody else. That's how you get respect. You don't get it by demanding it and getting pissed and yelling like a tantrum throwing toddler when you feel it's not there. You want to get respect? Give it. That's how you get respect. You want to be loved? Give love. Whatever you are not getting in your relationship, if you haven't figured it out yet by now, is something that you're not giving. Right? That's the problem. It's not that your partner is not giving something to you. It's that you're not bringing the necessary thing to the table that would induce the right response. Okay. So here are some counterpoints to defensiveness. Here's what you could say. That's fair. I could see why you felt that way. That's a good point. I think I could consider that. That makes some sense to me. Those types of things. Defensiveness. You want to validate a portion of what the other person is feeling, even if you feel something different. Because remember, it's really difficult for them to even take in what you're going to say unless they feel understood. So you have to make it a priority to understand and then react. Okay? Seek first to understand, then respond. That's the key thing you want to get. Seek first to understand, then respond. Okay? And be committed to creating a resolution, not to winning the fight. Okay? Acknowledging wrongdoing pours water on the fire. It really does. Show respect, love, and listening. Just say, wow, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I didn't mean for that to occur. I'm really sorry. You can be sorry that something you did triggered what it made your partner feel, even if you think it shouldn't have made them feel that way. Okay. There's no admission of guilt or wrong. People are so committed to, but if I say that, then I'm wrong. Okay. Well, just drop the whole shit. Who cares about right and wrong? Care about connecting with each other, right? That's what you need to prioritize. And when somebody gets that you are dropping the need to demonstrate that you are right, and you're just go, you know what, honey, sure. I love you. All I care about is that we come back together right now. Can we do that? Your partner will drop the need to feel right too. And they'll go, oh, wow, that was cool that they just did that. Okay. So that's 3 out of 4. 4 is stonewalling. Stonewalling is you're putting up a wall. That's it. Right? You're closing them off. You're not responding. You're turning away from them. You're disregarding them. Very often it is physical. So it's very often a folding of the arms and a turning away. You're not looking at them anymore. You're refusing to interact with them. Something like that. You're just not responding, looking down. Okay. So women sometimes will maintain eye contact, but they'll glaze over as if no one's home. They'll just look at you and, okay. And they'll just shut off and they won't respond. And that's kind of stonewalling in the feminine form very often. Okay. The problem with this is it creates tunnel vision for you, right? Everything you experience while you're stonewalling and you're in that tunnel is dark and scary. You're disconnecting from your partner, and separation equals suffering, remember? As soon as you disconnect from your partner, you're now in your own little dark reality tunnel where you're continuing to stew about your stories and your beliefs and what they did and what they didn't do. And you're talking to yourself in this internal dialogue and you're getting in a bad state, and then it just wrecks things. Okay. It's an urge to run away from overstimulation. But if you can start to sit in your discomfort and generate a loving response, even though it may feel challenging for you, that's what you want to do. Okay. Now, by the way, stonewalling is a tough one to kind of address. Addressing criticism and contempt are a little bit easier for people to zero in and focus on. If you address criticism and contempt, you very rarely will you even get to stonewalling. Okay. But you got to catch when you're about to do it and courageously turn towards your partner. Okay. Notice what your trigger is too. This is a good one. For people, it literally, there's almost always something physical. So think of a time when you did this to your partner. What did you do? Did you turn away? Did you put your eyes down? Did you fold your arms? What was it that you did? Notice what the trigger is and don't engage in that trigger. And it will keep you open and receptive and you'll stay connected. Okay. In a situation like this, sometimes it is really advisable to say, honey, I love you. I think we both need to get in a different state of mind for a while and then regroup on this. I don't want to abandon this conversation. I just want to be fair to you and I want to do it where I'm not about to say something I think I might regret. So can we press pause for an hour and then come back? My wife and I have done this many times and it'll work for, every time. Okay. So here are some antidotes to the 4 horsemen that you want to be keeping in mind. For criticism, use a softened startup, right? Like, honey, I love you. This is kind of driving me nuts. I know you don't mean it to. Is there something we can do about that, right? Isolate and focus on the what, not the who. Don't make an attribution about their character. Talk about the specific thing that's bothering you, the event. Defensiveness, take responsibility for your part. Acknowledge and appreciate the other person's world. Wow, I didn't realize that made you feel that way. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you felt that. I didn't mean to make you feel that. Okay, something like that. How else did it make you feel? Can you help me understand? What did that make you think or feel? I really want to understand. Contempt, seek to understand and appreciate their world. Defy the urge to be mean. Just don't do it. There's no other answer to it other than you recognize it doesn't serve you. It's really just a belittling thing. It goes against everything about what's great about being human. Don't engage in contempt. It's just not, don't scoff. Check what the physical triggers are for you. Catch yourself before you do it and don't do it. Okay. Stonewalling. Notice your physical trigger for it. Take a break, change your state, turn towards them. Okay. So what I want you to do is this. Think of a recent disagreement you had that resembles your average disagreement, or think of a past relationship where you had a disagreement that resembled a common one. And I want you to contemplate what you believe your ratio of positive to negative interactions was or is. Okay, figure that out. Just take a guess, like take a little snapshot of that, like run through maybe the first 5 minutes of the argument, keep a little tally if you like, and then just kind of see, like, are you really off? Is it like 10-1? Is it 5-5? What is it? Okay. And then which of the four horsemen are you guilty of bringing into the relationship? Which are the common offenders for you? That's what I want you to figure out. Okay, you really got to take stock of that. What are the common offenders for you? How do you say it? How do you criticize? What do you say that gets you defensive? What are the specific language patterns, right? What are the specific physical things that you do? Okay, which of the four horsemen are you guilty of bringing there? And then how will you choose to respond differently in the future? Okay, so what you can do is elicit all of the ways you think that you commonly demonstrate the four horsemen, and pick, maybe do a left column on that, and then the right column do what will you do or say instead. Okay, so you got to take some action with this. And then here's one thing I guess I would do for you too, for those of you who are in a relationship now. Pick a disagreement or fight that has been a problem because of the four horsemen. Go to your partner and say, listen, I really want to apologize. Last time that we talked, I was doing this, I was doing this, I was doing this, and that was a big problem. I want to have this conversation again. I really want to do it right. Can you tell me how you feel about it, right? And engage in that conversation without the four horsemen and practice it, because it's the old pattern, right? Remember that your patterns become the quality of your relationship. If that old pattern is starting to pull you in that direction, you're gonna have to fight it and tug against it and work with these new insights. That's why I'm giving you the assignment. You can't just watch videos and take notes and improve your relationship. You gotta have a new quality of conversation. And the best time and place to do that is to put it in action as soon as you've been taught it, okay? Now, if you're not in a relationship, but you're about to be, you need to isolate what were your common ways of engaging in the four horsemen. Maybe there are commonalities between multiple relationships you had in the past. So you need to isolate what were the common ones you were doing, and you need to make some new commitments so you can be on guard for that and ensure you don't bring those into your next relationship, okay? But I really need you to grasp these hard. You got to start to really understand what these are, and you got to start to commit to some new ways to communicate. This is a very powerful concept. And I just want you to remind you of 94% accuracy. Very often the people who go into this program or who get coaching from me are literally between 5 and 7 years from their marriage, or they've been together for 5 to 7 years and they're wondering why now they're on the brink of separation. And I bring up that statistic of this model and I say, yep, I can tell you exactly why, because usually between 5 and 7 years, if you've had these communication issues, that's when you separate with 94% accuracy, right? So it's almost guaranteed. And by the way, the 6% tend to be people who have stayed together, but they're not very happy. Right. So, that's something to keep in mind. So I want you to take action with this. Please, God, do it. Okay. So that you actually get some results. Thank you for being with us. I really just want to reemphasize how important this concept is for your life. So I hope that you really get that. And I'm excited to see you in the next one. We're starting to pick up some steam now, which is exciting.